Hello everyone, my name is Johnny5 and welcome to today's video. We're doing something a little bit different than we have before, and we're going over the new Nodewar system in terms of my thoughts, ideas, whatever the hell, right? So just kind of jumping into it, are Nodewars doomed? No. Are they fixed and saved? Also no. So we have like the good, right? So we have the good things coming out of this where there's no more politics for Node Wars. I think overall about 95% of people, except for the very few you know who you are, think that's a good change, right? People are tired of scripted fights. People are tired of having to capitulate to this system of listening to others and doing these node wars or just getting zerged out. And especially with the 10-minute lockout system, you were very, very heavily punished for not abiding by this politic-like system. Most people didn't want that anymore, but we had to. It was a lesser evil because otherwise it was just constant zerg fest. We saw this early on around spring of 2023. When they left the risk system and brought back the old Node War system, and we saw at start a bunch of guilds having fun, playing organically, just fighting whoever's nearby, or just even last second politic to ally up if there's a big boy nearby and they're two Weenie Hut Junior guilds to try to take them on, and it was fantastic. And then about 3 to 4 months in, people started doing politics before Node Wars, and they'd show up. There'd be like 8 total nodes and 8 total guilds, and 5 of them are allied. And then they just zerged the 3, and they're like, "All right, boys, it's your turn on the potluck today. Here's your free node," and everyone else would walk. And I think that's very awful. It's very boring. Nobody likes it. And so the lesser evil that was instilled instead was, hey, we're all going to do politics together so that way no one's zerged, everyone gets a nice healthy fight, and it's fun. Because I understand to a point why guilds are doing the initial politics where they're bringing in these zergs. It's because they don't want to get smashed, right? If you're a mid-end or even a bottom-end guild and you are neighbors with a upper-end guild, you're going to get rolled in 5, 10, 15 minutes. You don't get any rewards, and it's not fun. So that's the evil that they chose to do. Do I still judge them, and do I still think they're in the wrong for doing such? Yeah, of course. But I understand the mentality and why they're doing it. It doesn't make it less cringe, though. More good things with the system, of course, is that it feels more PvP centric. Instead of just backdooring people in this termite meta, just, CTGing their base when they're not home and killing them in 15 seconds, you see a lot more PvP going on, or at least what I've experienced so far. Definitely watching some of the T1 Node Wars in North America, I see this overall change to, instead of just backdooring, especially since they didn't have any sort of like FTs or Hawatches on T1s, and I believe just FTs on T2s, we see people ball fighting, which is what we want, right? That, to me, the point of Node Wars, the point of PvP is to fight other players. And I think it's a little bit silly that if you're going into this system and you don't want to fight players, you're probably doing the wrong thing, and maybe you either need to find a new game or find something else to do in Black Desert Online. Another good thing out of this, which I've been hoping for and wanting for the PvP scene for a very, very long time, are the rewards. So I'm not quite sure if you guys have seen all the rewards, but they are juiced, at least for the upper bend. For T3s, the level 1 to 5s, I think are pretty good. I think that those should probably be the rewards for T2s, maybe T1s, but I think more of T2s. I think we still could see a boost in the rewards for PvP, but just like we've seen prior, it's step after step, right? They give us a little bit of money. They're like, okay, that's not too much. How about a little bit more money? Oh, okay, that's not too much. And they've given us more and more. If you go back to January of 2023, when we left the risk system and we got the Nodewar vendors and whatnot, we've seen them over time get buffed so that we get more rewards from PvP. And we're starting to get to the point where you can actually progress at a semi-reasonable rate with these rewards. Obviously, if you're pushing a long 7, 27, 37, 40 gear score, you're looking for those end-game pen accessories like accuracy items or Debarekas. You're not going to gear fast, but you are going to gear. And if you're already at that point, it's very nice. You're definitely going to sustain your consumables. Unless you're running some really, really wacky things, you should be able to sustain. We also saw some changes with like cron meals recently giving spec attack evasion, trying to get rid of the food rotation, a couple other small just simplification and changes to make consumables less cancerous, to be honest. But overall, I think it's good. More rewards is better. I would like to see more rewards given to, RBF, AOS, and Siege, because I think they are very, very, very lacking. They're back in 2016 terms of rewards, but it is what it is. When a Node War gives more money than a Siege, you kind of have a question mark over your head. Another good thing is it's easier to get into. As somebody who has ran a guild before, it was a lot of work. You had to recruit people. You had to make sure you met the caps. You had to make sure you had the politics done. You had to make sure that you had the base built. You had to make sure that it was built in the right location. You had to meet up with your teammates in your scripted fights. And you're like, hey, where are you placing today, my comrade? And they're placed left or right of you, and you have to figure out 146 meters away, because if you place 145, it's too close and it doesn't work. Or whatever the number of distance it is you have to be at that time in Node Wars. And so if you just want to right now, you have a group of buddies that just want to start PvPing, you want to do some T1s, you can form a guild really quick. You don't even have to cap. You can bring 20, 25 people and just ball out. Just go around brawling, fighting other guilds. And as long as you're not the newest of new and you're not the noobiest of noobs, you're going to be just fine. And even if you are, you might have a rough time at start because you're 1 outnumbered and 2 outskilled, but you can get into it. You can try it out. You can practice. You can gain that experience that you need to get better. And I think that's super healthy for the system, because prior we had so many people who could run guilds or had run guilds who stopped because it was just too much freaking work. All right, so that's the good, and there might be a few more points later, but there is definitely some bad with this new Node War system, and we'll go over that too, but we're not going to be doing more about it because there are many things I can do to fix it and improve it. So one of the big things that I view as a bad thing for the system, or the way that it's constructed, is that it incentivizes getting out as soon as possible instead of a long form PvP, which is what I think historically people looked at as Node Wars, the long form PvP content. Previously, you could Node War up to 2 hours. Obviously, you have Siege where you can Siege up to 4, but Node Wars I always thought were best when they were anywhere between 60 to 90 minutes. I always thought recently in the previous Node War system that we had an average, I believe, of 38 minutes when I did the record for the past month of Corrupt's Node Wars. 38 minutes to me was very, very short. And I think that these new Node Wars are probably even shorter than that. It's probably an average of 30 or so minutes. I think that's not great. And there's a few reasons for that. If it was the sake of, oh, this is something you queue into and it's 30 to 60 minutes, that's fine, right? If I can queue into this over and over and over, no problem with that. But because it's only one time a day, it feels kind of crap, right? We've got all this effort to buff up, to prep, to get our strategies together, to get all the boys online. And it ends in possibly 10 minutes. Maybe you get lucky and it goes 60, but it can last 30 to 50 minutes. And that feels a little bit too short for me. I would like to see them extend this, because it doesn't necessarily mean you have to Node War that long. You just can if you would like to. And I think that's a huge positive that they could introduce into the system, which wouldn't harm anyone, at least that I can think of. Another thing which I think is very person to person, but I do find that being punished for winning feels bad. And what I mean by that is, by taking a fort, you're done PvPing, right? If you're in Node Wars to PvP, if I take a fort and I win, I lose because I'm done PvPing for the day. And again, this isn't something that I can queue into over and over. This is something you get to do one time a day. That is it. Well, per region. So only being able to do that once per day means that I don't want to get punished for winning. I would like them to change something along the lines of maybe there's early objectives that can help you later on in the wars, which would mean that winning initially doesn't mean you're over. It just means that you get a little bonus or something later. Maybe they change the system to be where if you capture a node, you don't lose or you don't get out of the Node War, but instead you get an extra back. Maybe you can capture 3 forts per day and you get 3 forts worth of loot. I think that would be a great system. I don't think everyone will agree with me on that, but I personally really like that idea. The other one, which I already kind of talked about, is another bad thing for the Node Wars, is they're too short. Like, again, they don't have to be 10 to 60 minutes. Make them so they can go up to 90. Make it so that on average they're at least 30 minutes. I think if you can't sign in for 30 minutes worth of PvP, you probably shouldn't be Node Warring. I think it's a little bit goofy to expect anything less than 30 minutes of Node War. If you want to talk about like the 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes prior that you have to, get into comms and yada, 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 sure. But I would say most guilds don't expect you to be in comms until about 10 minutes before Nodewar starts. So if they last up to 30 minutes, that's 40 minutes out of your day. I think committing to 40 minutes out of your day if you would like to Nodewar is not unreasonable. But maybe that's just me. Another issue that people have been seeing and have been looking for changes to improve upon this, which I haven't found any that everyone will agree on, is the RNG-like lottery system for acquiring the node. So if you're not aware, it's whoever hits the node last, or whoever kills it, right, last hits, gets it. And a lot of people are having issue with this because they're like, oh, I did 99% of the damage, and then this silly little archer rolls up and casts Righteous Arrow and kills the fort. And now they get it instead of me, who did all the work. I do think that there is a small issue with that. I think in that kind of a case, that's rather rare. I think most of the time what happens is you have two guilds, one on each side of the fort trying to hit it, and one of the two guilds hits it in the lottery-like system. Of course, it's super easy just to wrap the fort and kill the enemy guild if you would like to make sure that they can't or don't have a chance at it. But I don't know. I don't know if there's a perfect solution that everyone will agree on. The one that I had personally was whoever did the most amount of damage in the last 30 seconds. I think that's perfectly fair. You know, if you do 90% of the damage, and then you don't hit the stick for 30 seconds plus, that's kind of your own fault. You made a misplay. Maybe you want to extend it up to a minute. Maybe you want to shrink it down to 15 seconds. Maybe you want something else. I'm not sure. That's just the idea I had. That's, I guess, technically on PA to figure out. Another thing that I kind of have an issue with the Nodewar system is sometimes it does feel like a horse riding simulator. Instead of PvPing or instead of being very close combat, if the nodes are really, really far apart, it could just be me horsing across the node or horsing from the safe zones to the actual forts themselves, especially in Valencia, where the safe zones aren't like in very good places, and you have the desert, which is a very outdated and old mechanic, which they should just yeet out the window at this point. I would like to see some changes to help with this. Maybe like condense the spacing between nodes. They don't have to be neighbors, but I would like to see them at most like a node and a half, like, you know, skipping every other node instead of like that one's in Narnia and that one's in Azkaban. Like, it's a little goofy when you have them that far. The other problem, which I would like to see them fix, of course, and I think this is overall one of the biggest problems, is the amount of snipes. For those who aren't familiar with snipes, snipes are guilds who place on a region, whether it be T1, 2, or 3, and all they're looking for is a free bag. They don't want to PvP, which is, again, the entire point of Node Wars. They're just there to try to see, hey, can I snipe one for free? Can I grab a bag? Can I grab some money for free instead of participating in the content itself? I don't know exactly how you want to make it so that's changed. Maybe you raise the amount of kill deaths that you need, because right now 100 KD isn't that much. It takes about 5 minutes to get at most, as long as you bring a few people. Maybe they have some sort of system where you have to capture at least X amount of nodes per week, or I don't know. This is a tough ask. I think the best thing that you could do is for a 75-man node, you need at least 60 people yesed up before the war starts. Obviously, that means that there would be a lot more snipes in T1s. I don't really have a great way to fix that, but this would at least fix the sniping in the T3s and T2s. And maybe because there are just so many guilds in T1s, it kind of fixes itself, because they're like, oh, well, we can't snipe a T1. There's too many darn guilds. They're all actually fighting for it. We don't have a chance. Who knows? Going into the next part with expectations. What do I think PA is going to do? What do I foresee them trying to change? Well, we already have a few changes already on G-Labs, as we've seen prior. One of them is introducing supply depots. I think I heard a lot of people complaining that we didn't have the supply depots, which is something that kind of stunk, in my opinion, again. The reasons for that, if you wanted to leave your stick, or if you wanted to scout, anti-cannon, backdoor flag, you didn't have any way to get a horse if you own a base and you haven't died in a second or so. You needed that. It also helps to replenish traps, rebuild kits, repair gear. Technically you can use your tent, but buying traps would be really nice. I can carry 3 rows of traps, and sometimes I go through all 3 rows during a node war, depending on how long it is. Place your traps, guys. They're very important. Trust. If you're not placing traps, you're probably doing it wrong, especially when you're on defense. So I would like to see more little changes like that, right? The community is asking for some things back or some small changes. Just add them. It shouldn't be that hard. Another thing I would like to seeing is just small little improvements, right? Again, what is the community screaming about or requiring in mass? What do you see them asking for, right? If you have 100 people asking for something and 2 people say, no, I don't like that, you should probably listen to the 100, right? I understand trying to appease everyone, but in these kind of systems, you should appeal to the mass, right? If it's like 51% says yes and 49% says no, well, that's trickier. But if it's like 95 say yes, 5% say no, listen to the 95. I think that should just be, I don't know, fairly standard. I don't know. I also think no matter what they do in KR, just because it's PvP related content, KR will always be dead content for Node Wars. It's just not their jam. I don't know why that is. It's very weird seeing that out of KR, who has a very long and big track record of being very competitive in PvP games, League of Legends, StarCraft, stuff like that. Like, I'm surprised that we don't see more competitiveness out of them. So it is what it is. If they don't want a PvP, they don't want a PvP. Stop catering to the region that doesn't care. Cater to the regions that do care. Please. You can, if you want to do PvE, yeah, cater to KR all you want. They love that stuff. NA and EU do to a point as well, but for PvP, just stop. Like, you're trying to beat a dead horse and bring it back alive. It's not revivifying. It's dead. It's long dead and it's staying dead. Final thoughts. As is, I think it needs a lot of work. I think that we're probably going to be seeing guilds die as the system continues, even if they make quick changes, just because people are, short-fused. They're short-tempered, and a lot of people don't believe in PA or Pearl Abyss with their track record. It's not a very good one. It's not a very clean one, well, at least for PvP. PvE and quality of life, I can't deny. They have been doing fantastically. The quality of life changes overall in BDO, oh, fantastic. PvE changes, awesome. I love them. I love the speeding up of progression that they've done. I love a lot of the catch-up mechanics. I love the simplification of things to make the game less complicated without making it minimalized. I don't know if that makes sense. I like that the complexity is being driven in a good way, not in a, here's 5 billion elixirs and foods that you need to consume. That's boring, right? Complexity comes from build diversity, skill order, stuff like that. That's fun. Complication. Complexity? Complexity. I can't speak English. It's not my first language. It's not doomed. I still think it's very redeemable. I think the core skeleton, or whatever you want to call it, of this Nodewar system can be great. I think that there's some changes they need to make. They need to understand the audience that actually likes this content, being NA, EU, C, and I believe Japan. I don't see much out of Japan, I won't lie. It's kind of hard to find their content. But I know Asia, EU, NA love this stuff. We love PvP. We love Node Wars. Please, please, please put some effort into this. Listen to the feedback we have. I've posted forum posts. I have the podcast. I know there are other content creators and partners who do the same. Please listen to us. Please listen to all of us, not just partners and just not content creators. I think that there are a lot of content creators and partners who say fantastic things for the Nodewar system, and some of them say awful things for the Nodewar system. But that's because every person has a different opinion. But if your opinion is different from mine, you're wrong. That's just how it is, right? But people will mold no matter what, and that's something that PA also needs to expect, right? When I was going over the recent forum posts that I made, one of the big things that people disliked was the lottery system. I gave suggestions, and some of them I've talked about today. And no matter what I came up with for ideas or solutions, some people didn't like them no matter what. They might have agreed that the lottery system was an issue, but no one could agree on what to do to fix it. And that's something you're going to have to just come across and get over. Do what you think is best. Do what you see a lot of positive feedback from. Not all of it has to be positive, but take what's positive and then implement it. And I think that's something that PA used severely lack in doing, which is communication. Ask the community, what do you want? What do you like? What do you dislike? And we will tell you real quick. We did when you tried to do the PvP changes, right? You tried to switch up by giving us more super armors, and the community screamed that we did not want that, and you listened for once and you went back on that, and you haven't given us anything in like 10 months since. But I mean, hey, at least you didn't implement that, because that would have killed your game. at least from a PvP side of things. So I'm glad that you listened to that way, but find better forms of communication. People are so doomer about the forums because you don't listen sometimes. It feels awful. The number 1 and number 2 upvoted forum post in North America EU have been responded to by Pearl Abyss, but have not had anything done, and they're both over a year old at this point. One was choices for RBF, talking about how you can implement a good reward system for people who are participating and skill-based and can't be abused very easily. And Pearl Abyss said, oh, wow, this is awesome. And a year and a half later, it hasn't happened. It's just very weird. The number 1 forum post is the one I made regarding the GVG changes. We said, hey, we understand maybe KR likes this or other regions like this, but NAEU does not want this. And while I understand there are some content creators and there are some players in the game who might disagree with my opinion that, yeah, it should have been changed for the GVG system, that post had over 1,000 upvotes and less than 100 downvotes. That's over a 90% ratio of voting said, hey, please don't change this system. And you continued along with it anyway. It's I understand that you may have a view on what you want the game to be, but sometimes as the developer, you need to realize that your opinion is wrong. Maybe that's a tough pill to swallow, but it's just true. Your opinion can be wrong, and my opinion can be wrong, right? Some people disagree with me. Of course, everyone's going to be in the boat like I joked about earlier in this video. My opinion is right and yours is wrong, but, you know, everyone can have a wrong opinion. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing if PA listens to the community. And they don't have to make any sort of giant changes to this system, I think. I think it's just the little things. A bunch of the quality of life things I talked about earlier in the game in general, if they were introduced into this, would be fantastic. It's exactly what I would like to see. I think it's what a lot of people would like to see. I don't think change to this system to make it good is impossible. I think very little is possible. But, you know, Blue Squadron regrowing his hairline is pretty impossible, but the rest of it, not so much. And Blue, please stop pausing the video over and over. It's like a 23-minute video. Stop milking it for 2 hours. Other than that, I don't have too much on this Nodewar system. I'm going to be talking about it more on my podcast, which is live now at 10:15 EST every Friday. I stream throughout the week at twitch.tv/Johnny5, JONNEYFIVE. And I'll be posting more stuff on my YouTube channel, whether it be BDO or other related, but we stick within the MMO genre. So if that's your stuff, please give me a subscribe. I thank you all for watching this video otherwise, and I'll see all of you guys later.